Well, hello everyone. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and welcome to the Chrestman Conversation. Today on the podcast, we are going to talk about probably the biggest political news of the day. Joey B picked his VP yesterday, and for those who managed to miss the news, picked Kamala Harris as his running mate for the 2020 presidential race. Now, this wasn't entirely a surprise. Kamala Harris's name, her name has been thrown around for quite a while now. There's a lot of people who were speculating that she might be the pick. Everyone knew she was in the running, in the top. So hearing that she was selected wasn't entirely a surprise. It's not completely out of the blue. However, I think a lot of people, myself included, for a lot of people, this was not the most obvious choice for someone like Biden. And I was very surprised that he wound up picking her. And we're going to go into all the reasons why we have a lot to say today. And here's my opinion right off the bat, so we know right where I stand from the beginning of this video. This was a mistake. This was a bad choice for Joe Biden. And I'm going to go through 1,000 reasons why I think that. First, but before we even talk about the pick, let me talk about something I think that Joe Biden did wrong right from the beginning. Now, I think it was wrong for him to say we're 100% going to pick a woman. I don't think it's a mistake that he picked a woman. I think it was a mistake for him to say we're going to pick a woman. And here's why. Immediately, you're setting whoever he picked, whatever woman he wound up picking, this is not specific to Harris, but whatever woman he wound up picking, this just opens you up to attacks of tokenism. Or some sort of, oh, you're only picking her because she's a woman, or you're only picking her because she's a black woman, as the case with Harris might be. You're going to have people who make those arguments, and you're not going to have a great defense. You might say, well, she's qualified in all these different ways, but it will be undercut by the fact that you promised to pick a woman. And when you do that, you're just setting yourself up for these kind of attacks. Now, what he should have said is we're going to find and pick the best candidate we can possibly pick. And when pressed on the issue, well, are you going to pick a woman? He said, well, we're going to find the best candidate. And then when you come out and pick a woman, you say the woman she was absolutely the best candidate, and that's great. That's fantastic. To say we went through all the candidates and we found a woman, even if you know you're going to pick a woman, which Joe Biden obviously knew. Don't tell people that, because you're just setting the woman herself up for failure when you do that. You're just making it so that people will dismiss her as just a prop, which is it's already going to happen. It's already an attack that now, regardless of the qualifications of Kamala Harris, it already is an attack that has some bit of truth to it. Because he's not even considering everyone. He cut out half of the population. So by definition, you're not making sure you have the absolute best person for the job when you do that. And he's just setting her up for failure. So I think that was a mistake on Joe Biden's part from the beginning. You don't promise you're going to pick someone based on their gender or their ethnicity. That's just a mistake. And again, it's got that ugly taste of tokenism to it. This is something that you don't want to do. It's like when people gave Trump a lot of shit before for when he was at that rally and he pointed to the black guy in the crowd and he said, "Look, there's my African American right there." It's like, what are you doing? You don't. I don't know. It just is ugly. It's just an ugly thing to do. And you're setting her up for failure. And that's nothing to do with her. That's just not great in general. Okay, now we're going to get into Harris herself. For those people who they might not follow politics very closely, might not be familiar with Kamala Harris. She is the senator from the state of California. She's been in Congress since 2017. Prior to that, she was the district attorney of San Francisco from 2004 to 2011. And then she went on to be the district attorney for the state of California from 2011 to 2017. Most people who are familiar with her name outside of the state of California probably know her because during this recent presidential primary, she was running for president. And she was actually running against Joe Biden. Now, again, I have a lot of thoughts on this pick. I think that Joe, he messed up with this one for a lot of reasons. During the primary, Kamala Harris polled at 5%. 5% of people who were on the Democratic side said that she was their first choice. Now, that was in June of last year, and she had a one moment and a peak in her popularity where she actually went up to 15% in the polls for about a couple weeks and then slowly declined back to 5%. Now, after her one big moment where she jumped up and had that 15% or that 10% spike to 15%, she never, ever was able to build on that. It only went downhill. It had one moment. If this was her chart, it was nothing, 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 one spike, and then a slow decrease to nothing. That was Kamala Harris's presidential nomination path. And part of this is just due to, there's a lot of factors. According to a lot of news sources, I was doing some reading on this yesterday, just looking for some notes here. And apparently her campaign was very poorly managed. There was a lot of infighting, a lack of leadership. She bifurcated her campaign between California and the West Coast, which led to infighting among people. So it was a very poorly managed campaign. The other part is that people found it very difficult to resonate or to flock to her. They could not connect with her. Part of this was strategical on her part, where she thought her best chance was to never take a firm position on anything, which is why she got slapped kind of hard for flip-flopping on a lot of things. And you look back on her positions on healthcare. Do you want a single payer? Yes. No. Yes. No. She went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. She refused to just flat out tell us her plan for healthcare. And she was like this on a lot of issues. She didn't want to alienate anyone, and what they wound up doing was making it incredibly difficult to know what she actually stood for, and people aren't drawn to that. They don't like uncertainty. So this allowed the progressives on her left to rip into her, and the moderates on her right to rip into her. And she never picked a lane, and that was a bad choice. She could have picked the progressive Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren wing, or she could have tried to go towards the moderate lane with Biden and Klobuchar, and she just refused to do either one, and therefore never got support from anyone. Now, she ran a poor presidential campaign for sure. But what about that one moment? What about that spike in popularity that happened? Don't we all remember that we were just talking about, that 10% spike that just came one day? What did that come from? Well, I think we all remember, and we're going to play the clip here because it's amazing. Because that one moment, that viral moment in her campaign, it came from attacking Joe Biden. And so we're going to play the clip here, and then we're going to talk about it because it's amazing to me how this works. Okay, so here we go. All right. So by the way, you can't read the title of this video right here, but the title of this video is "Can Kamala Harris Walk Back Her Primary Debate Attacks on Joe Biden?" This was put up by CNBC television on YouTube like an hour ago or something. It is a very new video. But anyway, we're going to play this because it's amazing. But this is the moment that made her go viral for a minute during the campaign. Here we go.
I do not believe you are a racist. And I agree with you when you commit yourself to the importance of finding common ground. Mm-hmm. But I also believe, and it's personal, and I was actually it was hurtful to hear you talk about the reputations of two United States senators who built their reputations and career on the segregation of race in this country.
It's a mischaracterization of my position across the board. I do not praise racists. That is not true.
Vice President Biden, do you agree today that you were wrong to oppose busing in America then?
No.
Do you agree?
Now, okay. Now that's not the entirety of the exchange, but that's enough to get a feel for it. Here's the thing about that. The thing about that's crazy to me is that she flat out says right at the beginning, I do not believe you're a racist. And then there's a big but here's a list of all the racist stuff that you've done. And she talks about him praising segregationists. And then she talks about him opposing busing and trying to prevent black kids from going to school. Now she does say, I don't believe you're a racist, right at the beginning, right? We know that. We can hear it. It's right there on the video. But here's an analogy for you. This is like saying, this is like someone who says something like, no offense, but you're a total asshole. The second half of that phrase totally discounts the first half. I don't care that you said no offense if you're going to just call me names. Now, she basically said, hey, you're not a racist, but you do racist things, and you try to prevent me, the second class of black kids, to segregate schools from going to school because you oppose busing, you big racist. Now, again, she didn't say, Joe Biden, you're a big racist, but she is strongly implying it. And then afterwards, if you watched her, she was asked a lot of questions about this, obviously. She really played a game where she really refused to just say Joe Biden's not racist. She would really kind of hint at it. And okay, and here's the thing about this. I don't begrudge her this. It's presidential politics. You play dirty, you play to win. I get it. I think trying to characterize Joe Biden as a racist, that's a little absurd. He's clearly not a racist individual. I think from his actions and just all the time he's been in public light, I don't think Joe Biden's a racist. So it's a little shifty, but it's presidential politics. I get it. Now here's the problem though, is that she flat out was saying like, Joe, you've done some racist stuff here, and I want an apology from you. She said, I want an apology, and said he never apologized for it. Now, you look forward to this. Look forward to 1,000 attack ads on this, where she's going to be like, do you really want Joe Biden as your president when even his vice presidential partner thinks that he's a racist? Joe, is that what you want? I'm looking forward to those attack ads. I'm looking forward to every Republican, conservative-leaning journalist in the country making her talk about that moment for the next few months. I don't understand. This is the one thing that made her famous during the campaign. This is it. This is her one moment. And it came in strongly implying that Joe Biden is at least, maybe not racist, but he's at least comfortable with racism. That's the implication. You might not be racist, but you hang out with segregationists, Joe. You might not be racist, but you didn't want schools integrated, Joe. Look forward to that for the next couple months. Every time that somebody who's even slightly right of center gets the chance to ask her a question, it's going to be on this one topic. That's why it was a surprise to me. Joe Biden, his campaign said he wants somebody he's simpatico with. They want somebody they're in sync with. That these two never liked each other. It was very clear. They didn't like each other. Joe Biden didn't like what she did on that debate stage. She didn't like him. And they're not, when Obama, his presidency was over, there were all those memes that went around of Barack and Joe, the wingman. They're pretty good. And that would never be these two. They're not, Joe Biden and Obama seem like they're really good friends. They at least present that way in public. These two will never convince the public of that. They're never going to be, bros who hang out. It's just not going to be a thing. So I don't see, the compatibility between these two is non-existent. The chemistry between these two, we'll see what happens when they start making appearances together, but I doubt that it's going to exist. I don't know. Now, that you could say the same about Trump and Pence. I don't necessarily think that they have the best chemistry in the world. I don't think Pence is a particularly charismatic guy, and Donald Trump sucks up all the oxygen in the room. But that's okay because you have Trump who sucks up all the oxygen in the room. You don't need the charismatic VP when you are, doing your thing. So I'm just curious. I don't know how Biden and Harris are going to act together, and it's interesting to me. So besides the fact that the only thing that made her famous was attacking Joe Biden, there's another reason that this is a mistake. And that is that people just don't like her. The problem for Harris is that she has all the likability of Hillary Clinton, which is to say not a lot. And this is not, by the way, this is not an attack on women in politics. There are a lot of female candidates who are much more likable than someone like Harris or Clinton. Now, if you looked at, I liked Amy Klobuchar. I think she had something that a lot of the other candidates didn't. I think Tulsi Gabbard has a lot of likability. And like Tulsi Gabbard she seems like a genuinely good person, and she is very likable. I was actually, besides Tulsi Gabbard's foreign policy, I really like Tulsi Gabbard. And again, none of this, so these questions of likability, she's just off-putting, Harris is. She's just not popular. And she had to, okay. So we're going to play, here's something that is very true. The progressives in the Democratic Party really dislike Kamala Harris. And I'm going to play another clip here that just demonstrates that full bore, because this was amazing. This was one of my favorite debate moments right here. Is when Tulsi Gabbard just shreds Kamala Harris to bits here. Here we go. Check this out.
I want to bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting black and brown people all across this country today. Now, Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. That would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman.
Now, I was thinking about going and hearing the response here, but I think I'm going to stop it there real quick because I just want to point out a couple things. Now, everything Tulsi Gabbard is saying right there, 100% true. Now, she was a district attorney, so it's her job to enforce the law. However, she did choose, Kamala Harris, to selectively do that in certain cases. Now, here are some of the bad things that progressives who are for things like prison reform and don't like the police right now, and don't like cops, they say, oh, she's a prosecutor, she's on law enforcement side, she's bad. And she did some things that are not great. And this is coming from someone who's very pro law enforcement. I'm very pro law enforcement, but I don't like certain laws on the books, that's for sure. So these marijuana things, for example, she locked up 1,500 people for smoking marijuana, and then she was asked personally if she ever smoked marijuana, and she just laughed it off, refused to answer the question. So progressives don't like that. Tulsi Gabbard made mention of the fact that there was a mandate from the Supreme Court that said California had to reduce its prison population by 30%, I think. Off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure. But California had to reduce their prison population. And the prosecutors working for Kamala Harris at the time made the argument that California couldn't afford to do it because they needed the cheap labor of people in prison. That was the argument for keeping people in jail. They wanted to use them for forced labor. That came straight from Kamala Harris's office. She locked up something like 50 people for whose kids were truant from school. Yeah, some law that made it a criminal act to have your kids miss more than 10% of a school year without a given reason. And she locked up parents for truancy. So she's not, again, not great as a DA, and people, again, progressives gonna hate this, just not gonna love it. They didn't like her in the first place. You have people right now who want to defund all law enforcement, and you're gonna put up a prosecutor cop pro police, pro locking people up prosecutor. I just think it is not going to go over great. But here's the thing about that is that this is just tactically, such a terrible choice for Joe Biden. Nobody likes Kamala Harris. There's very few people. So you have some people in the black community who like Kamala Harris. But here's the thing. Joe Biden doesn't need more support in the black community. Joe Biden does really well with the black community in the United States. He doesn't necessarily need to cater to the black community right now today. The Democratic Party, for better or worse, has that vote mostly locked up. I think it's not a great thing, but it's true. Joe Biden recently just said that the Hispanic community has more diversity than the black community in terms of thought. He basically implied that the black community is a monolith of same think, and unfortunately, and this is unfortunate, that is, when it comes to politics, it's very true. Something like 90 to 95% of all black people in this country vote Democrat. It's not great. And so he doesn't need to cater to the black vote. And even if he did, he's more popular in the black community than Kamala Harris. What Joe Biden needs is someone who can appeal to the people who voted for Obama and then voted for Trump. And that is very much not Kamala Harris. She has no appeal with those moderates, and it's not gonna play well. She couldn't even carry her home state during the presidential nomination. She dropped out before she lost California because that would have been very embarrassing for her to lose her home state. You don't lose your home state. You're not supposed to, at least. And she was going to lose. She was going to lose California, and so she dropped out of the presidential thing. And you normally would pick a vice president kind of based on what state they're from and maybe where you need to get some votes. He doesn't need he's going to win California handily. He doesn't need more votes in California, and she couldn't even carry her state in the first place. So you pick someone from the West Coast in a state you don't need, who doesn't even have popularity in her own home state, from someone from a community that you don't need more support from, and you need to appeal to moderates. Oh, and you're alienating your progressives who might not show up to vote anyway. Well, you need to appeal to moderate voters. Amy Klobuchar would have been a fantastic choice. She's from a swing state that you need to win. And wait, no, she's from Minnesota. Yeah, still a state you need to win. And Minnesota or Michigan? Oh my gosh, I think she's from Minnesota. My apologies there. I was thinking Michigan for a second, but she's from Minnesota. But still, a state that you need to win. Midwestern appeal to moderate voters. That has appeal in swing states. She wouldn't alienate progressives quite as much as Kamala Harris does because her history is not one of being a prosecutor with kind of a controversial past on things like this. Harris has no pull in swing states. And it is just a bad choice for him to have picked her. Because here's the other thing that is unfortunate. Oh my gosh. You hear that thunder? Oh my gosh, that is crazy. Here's the unfortunate bit that has been very difficult. Joe Biden, in my opinion, and in the opinion of a lot of people who have watched him, he appears to have some sort of cognitive decline going on. Now, I always liked Joe Biden. He has a good reputation in the Senate for being a well-liked, good person. He always has. He's done and said some things in the past that I don't like, but that's every single person in politics. You never like someone 100%. For the most part, I have never found Joe Biden to be, a terrible person. I've always kind of liked him. So I don't say this. I take no joy in pointing this out, but we're just ignoring the fact that he appears to have some sort of cognitive decline. Play clips of Joe Biden from 10 years ago, and then play clips of him now. He is stumbling through sentences. He's forgetting things like where he is, what's going on. It's not great. He didn't used to do this all the time, and now it's constant. So a vote for Joe Biden has been kind of a vote for his vice president. And that's why normally, who cares about the vice president? Normally, not anyone. You're not voting for the vice president. In this case, you're voting for the vice president. And he picks someone who is not popular and very decisive, very, what's the word I'm looking for? Who just, she's not uniting anyone. She's not bringing together a coalition. She couldn't build a coalition in the presidential primaries. She's not building one now. So a vote for Joe Biden for president is, in a sense, a vote for Kamala Harris for president. And I'm not going to vote for Kamala Harris for president. So I think there's going to be a lot of people like myself who are in an unfortunate position where, well, I don't think I'm going to vote for Joe Biden anymore. And it's based on his VP pick. I was having a hard time with Joe before, and this just made it official. Like, I don't think I can vote for Joe Biden. And I've always said I don't think I can vote for Donald Trump either. And so, you know what? This is not great. It's not great. Donald Trump will probably win Missouri, which is where I live. So, you know, Missouri seems like a pretty safe state for him at this point. So it's not the biggest deal. But if I lived in a swing state, if I lived in Michigan or Ohio, Pennsylvania, I'd be looking at these options and I'd say, oh my God, what am I going to do? This is going to make a lot of people angry. Donald Trump, 4 years ago, I voted for Hillary Clinton for a number of reasons. One, I didn't find her policies she wasn't quite as radical as the Democratic Party is 4 years later. And she was kind of a traditional Democrat. Some things I didn't like, some things I liked. But I could vote for Hillary Clinton. I didn't like Hillary Clinton. She was not my favorite person in the world, but I could vote for her. And I felt like, you get in there, she'd be okay. And the big thing is, too, I find Donald Trump very off-putting in his personality and his rhetoric. And you didn't know how he was going to govern, what he was going to do. Well, 4 years later, if you're taking a look at the field as it sits now, you say, okay, Donald Trump, his personality, his rhetoric, still find it off-putting. But how is he governed? He's governed kind of like a traditional conservative. A little more chaos in his cabinet, but for the most part, policy-wise, pretty traditional Republican, pretty standard conservative stuff. And it hasn't really been that terrible. Now, there's going to be people who have a problem with that phrase. Oh, my God, look at all these terrible things he's done. He's done some things that I like. He's done some things that I don't like. But that's pretty much every politician ever. I think that for a lot of people, they're going to look at the last 4 years and they're going to say, well, it's the same guy he was, but he hasn't been terrible. If you're a Republican, you're not that dissatisfied with what Donald Trump's been doing. And if you're a moderate with maybe slightly right leanings who sometimes votes Democrat, so these are the people who voted for Obama and then voted for Trump, you're looking at Trump saying, well, at least he's not crazy like the Democrats are crazy. And you're not wrong. You're not mistaken. Donald Trump has done it just is so weird when I have to do this. It's so weird when I have to get on here and defend Donald Trump. I just don't enjoy doing it. But he hasn't been the worst thing that ever happened in the world. There's a lot of people, again, who disagree with that, but they're just mistaken. They're just letting their hatred of Donald Trump kind of cloud the facts on the ground. And so I think that this VP pick for Biden was just a giant mistake. He should have picked someone in the very center who could have won some voters where he needs it. Now, if he wins in a landslide, it has nothing to do with Harris and everything to do with the fact that people find Donald Trump off-putting or his handling of Corona bad or whatever the case may be. It is not going to be an endorsement of Kamala Harris, that's for sure. Oh, Lord. It's just it's crazy. We live in a country of 350 million people, and these are the people that we want to be president. We got Donald Trump and Joe Biden, a man with early dementia, and Kamala Harris, a person who I don't think could ever get more than 5% of a room to enjoy being around her. It's like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being a little harsh there, but I don't find her, again, I find her very off-putting, as do many people. And I don't know. We'll see. Oh, anyway, as you can tell, not a big fan. And in summation, not a fan. Bad pick. I think, though, oh my gosh, this thunderstorm here is getting crazy. I don't know if the mic is picking that up at all. I can't tell, but it's pretty loud out there. I think we're going to leave it there today. Obviously, there will probably be more about this we'll have to talk about as it goes on. There's going to be some... I hope that they have debates. I think that it's cowardly if Joe Biden doesn't do it. I think that I think that people are trying to get Joe Biden to just stay in his basement and not do anything, knowing that it's all, if it's a referendum on Donald Trump, that Joe Biden will win. But the more Joe Biden's in public, the worse he looks. And they're just trying to keep him hidden from everyone. And so I don't know if they're going to do debates, and I think that the American people should demand them. We really should. And we'll definitely have to cover all that and probably more Harris-Biden stuff. And, presidential politics is going to be in full swing for quite a while. So we got a lot to talk about. But we're leaving it there for the day. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I'm Tyler Chrestman, and you have a lovely day.